Okay, let's talk a little bit about Git and GitHub and Android Studio. Android Studio has built-in support for Git and GitHub for source control. Source control are systems that track changes to your code, your source code, and does version control and keeps track of them. And most development systems or studios use version control of some sort, and Git is quite popular, and so is GitHub. So we'll be using those. So the first thing you want to do is install Git on your machine. Click on this link and download Git for your appropriate operating system and install it there. Um, on some systems it may be installed already, or you may have to just enable it, but you can go through this operation either way. Then you'll need a GitHub account. So Git runs on your local machine and tracks code changes on your local machine. GitHub is a cloud-based website where you can store every project on your local machine as a repository on this cloud-based system. And so you want to create an account in GitHub. There are free accounts available to everyone, but there's also special free accounts for students that you can do as part of the Student Developer Pack that includes lots of things, but includes a nice, powerful part of GitHub. Gives you some of the pro editions as a student. So I suggest you connect and install or get an account using that. Either way, you'll want to get an account with your css.edu email address. So once you've got a project, let's say you want to add it to GitHub here, eventually we'll start doing assignments where I'll give you a assignment in GitHub and you'll download it already. But let's say you just have one of your projects and you want to just put it on GitHub. So let's look at that. So here's a project here in Android Studio. And this isn't in version control. The version control system menu is up here, and it's not in version control. I can go up here and it says enable version control. And so if that's there and there's not a commit and other options here, that means you don't have version control options. Also, all these files are in black, and even if I change them, they're still in black. And when you have version and control set up, if you change a file, it should change be highlighted in red. So let's first just enable version control. So I'm just going to click on that. And we're going to use Git for that. So what that will do is set up and mark all these files. Now initially all the files here are red, meaning they have changed because again nothing's actually been set up in Git. Now in using Git and GitHub is a two-part process now. We want to commit, and that stores and updates the project on your local machine. And then you want to push the project up to GitHub, and that pushes it up to the cloud-based system here. So this does our initial project control. But now we want to share the project on GitHub. So here I'm going to go to version control, and I'm going to go to import into version control and share the project on GitHub. Now the first time you do this, you'll have to log into GitHub here. And right now with the current version of Android Studio, there seems to be some challenges. So I'm already logged into GitHub, so it doesn't have a problem, but we'll talk about that logging in just a sec. So again, this is the repository name, and it's just your project name generally, and I generally keep it the same, and you don't have to worry about this remote or this description. If you want to type in a short description here, you can, and then you share this, and then the project will show up on GitHub. These are all the files, and this is a commit. Every time we do a commit, we type in a message saying what changes we have or some description of that. So let me see if I can make this smaller. So okay, so I'm going to just say add, and that will actually do the commit. Now there was an option actually there under commit to actually push it, but right now I've only committed it. And I can see, let me see if I can get this up here a little bit higher. Here, it's pushing, it says it was pushing, and now it says successfully shared the project on GitHub here. So the first version of the project on GitHub. So now if I go log into GitHub and look at my repositories, I'll see this new project here that was just updated seconds ago. And I can actually go into that project and see the source code and all that sort of stuff. So That's how you set up a project that isn't in GitHub into GitHub initially. Now, like I mentioned before, you may have to do a login with GitHub. So what happens sometimes is you don't, in Android Studio, you can't log in. It'll pop up a window, and when you try to log in with your GitHub login and stuff, it'll give you a 404 error or something like that. If that's the case, you need to do it with tokens. So again, back in GitHub, go to settings. Under settings, we're going to scroll down to go to developer settings. In other developer settings, we're going to go personal access tokens. And then you want to create tokens for each one. So you'll generate a new token. And you need a new token for each of the machines that you have. So you need to log in again and confirm your login, but you give it some name like, a new for my home laptop or something like that. So keep track, because you may need a couple tokens if you have more than one machine. And then you want to just click on all of these, enable all of these objects, go through this whole thing, enable them all here. And then generate the token here. So I'm just going to say sample. And generate that token. And this will generate this long code, and you can hit this to copy it. And then you can go back into Android Studio where you've logged in. And again, where you're trying to log in, there'll be an option to log in with a token. You can click on that, and then you can just paste the token in, and that'll get you logged in. Okay, so that's the authentication stuff. Now, a couple other things. Let's say we have a project out there, like an assignment starting project, and you want to download that from GitHub here. Let's talk a little bit about how you'll do that. So inside Android Studio, you'll close, if you have an open project, you'll close that and you'll get back to this starting project here. And now you'll say get from version control, and you want Git should be selected automatically, and you'll want a URL. So again, you can go to GitHub and find your project. In fact, for assignments, I'll have a link to setting these up in GitHub for you. So eventually, you'll from the assignment, you'll be given a URL for your assignment here. Once you have that, you can go back into Android Studio, paste that in here, and hit clone. And this will copy it here. This is the directory by default, and again, you can change where this projects are stored if you want. It will clone and should open up the project here. Now, as you're working with the project in Android Studio and you want to save the changes, it's a two-step process. You commit them, which saves them locally, and you push them. That saves them up to GitHub here. So let's say we're working on a project over here, and we've made some changes to this project. Now, as we make changes here, if we commit those changes or whatever, make changes, you'll see the color of your files highlighted in the blue or red here. So this means I've made some changes here. And so now I'm going to go up to the version control system and choose commit here. And let's see if I can get this window sized up so you can see it all. So these are the files that have changed here. Main activities changed in this Gradle thing. I should add a comment here saying, I made this change or whatever. It's not that important. And then I can hit commit, and then I'll do push. Now, once you get going, you might want to start switching this over to commit and push. There's that option here. We'll do it all in one step, but I'm going to do it in two steps. So I'm going to hit commit here. It'll save these changes locally. Now it's going to say that there were a couple warnings in my project. You almost always have warnings in your project, so just commit anyway. You don't have to worry about that. Once you've committed, you should push. So I should go down to Git and hit push here. So when I go to version control, Git and push is actually just off the screen here, but push is an option here, and I'll click on push, and it will, again, have my changes here, and I can say push, and it'll save those. It'll say pushing down here at the bottom, and eventually say updated to GitHub. And then I can actually go into GitHub on the internet, go to that project, and I should be able to see the changes if I wanted to. Okay, now if you're on multiple machines, like let's say you're working in the computer lab, you do some changes, and then you go home and you want to get those changes, then you have to do a pull. So if the changes are out there already from a different machine, I do version control, git, and then I do pull. And that will pull the changes down here. Hit pull and get and update this with whatever new changes are in the cloud. So that's a quick update on GitHub and version control.